It's really cool. It's a cool sports collectible. It's a cool book. And where was this printed? It was printed in the States?
It's actually printed in 1834 in Boston.
This is really cool. I mean, it's incredibly iconic. The Beach Boys are, they were nicknamed America's band. Brian Wilson.
Things got intense right from the jump. A customer claims he's holding the very first printed book with American baseball rules, and Rick perks up like he just smelled a World Series ticket. If this thing's legit, it's a monster score. The seller breaks it down. Printed in Boston in 1834 with an early baseball diamond illustration. He's confident, borderline cocky, and asks for $6,000. You can almost hear Rick's inner calculator having a panic attack. Can you believe this drama? If it's authentic, it's history. If not, it's expensive kindling. Stakes are sky high, and the tension's delicious.
I brought you the first printed book with American baseball rules.
Rick plays it smart. He wants verification. He tees up the plan to bring in a sports memorabilia pro because this book straddles sports holy grail and fine press antique. Translation: it's rare, weird, and pricey. Rick's poker face says, maybe, but not at $6,000 without backup. Talk about a twist. Now we wait for expert eyes before the wallet talks.
Oh great, if he's a sports guy, he'll really appreciate this.
I'm hoping he will. Let me have him look at it. We'll figure out a price.
I'll definitely hang out. Thanks so much.
Jeremy, the sports expert, arrives and practically fanboys. He confirms it's an early, incredibly rare baseball reference with wild rule quirks, like recording an out by pegging the runner with the ball. Baseball meets dodgeball. Jeremy is impressed, but he wants an antiquarian book expert to weigh in on condition and value. High hopes, higher caution.
I know exactly what this thing is. This is the first time I've actually had an opportunity to see it in person. This is a truly awesome book in the world of baseball.
Jeremy flags the crossover problem. Sports collectors love it, but the fine book world rules the price. He recommends Rebecca for a condition-grade reality check. The suspense is delicious. Authenticity looks great, but value depends on binding, cloth, and those delicate pages. Talk about a plot twist. One more expert before Rick swings.
If this were to come into my shop, I would need an actual book expert.
Rebecca arrives for the book and lights up. She calls it a landmark, American Games, early diamond, and a snapshot of US culture flexing its independence. Condition? Binding intact, cloth toned but solid, grubby in the right, honest way. She pegs retail at $7,500 to $8,500. The seller beams. Rick's gears start turning. You can feel the negotiation storm forming.
This wasn't the first even to have a baseball diamond. It wasn't necessarily the one that talked about baseball, but this is a landmark.
Game time. Rick throws a curve at $3,500. The seller counters at $4,500, both acknowledging retail versus reality. The tension climbs beautifully. Expert value versus pawn math. Finally, Rick plants it. $4,000 flat. Beat. Nod. Deal. Talk about a twist. Watching Rick lock down a rare baseball milestone for $4,000 is pure pawn shop theater.
I'm going to throw you a curveball and I'll give you $3,500. That's
I'm not swinging.
Cut to a totally different battlefield, literally. A guy marches in with what he believes is a Civil War drum, the kind drummer boys used for commands under fire. Rick digs the story but spots modern hardware and repairs. You can cut this tension with a knife. Is it wartime treasure or parade prop? The seller drops a bomb. He wants $12,000.
You came in a while ago with like a Star Wars script or something, right?
That's right, absolutely.
Expert time. The drum specialist inspects every inch and drops the verdict. Post-Civil War, likely 1870s to 1880s. A parade drum, still 19th century, but not battlefield glory. The seller's face. Seriously, look at that reaction. Expectations just got tackled at the line of scrimmage. There's still a market, but the story and the price just changed big time.
You know, the youngest drummer in the Civil War was 9.
Whoa.
Yeah, a fellow named John Klimp.
Negotiation gets spicy. Rick offers $500, grounding the price in the new story. A nice parade piece, not a war relic. The seller counters, bargaining hard on Americana vibes. Back and forth builds like a drum roll until they land at $950. Not the $12,000 dream, but a realistic win. Watching the pivot from legend to decent display was priceless.
You know, I can understand not 12,000. 500, you know, this is a piece of Americana.
Next up, a cast iron ice shaver, Snow Cone City. The seller hopes to turn nostalgia into plane tickets to see his son. Sweet motive, but Corey's not sentimental with the numbers. He peeks at the rust, checks the mechanics, and appreciates the vintage charm. It feels 1930s to 40s, diner-worthy, but not museum-grade gold. Can you believe this mix of cute and clunky?
What the hell is this?
It's a cast iron ice shaver.
So it makes snow cones.
Yeah.
Corey gets down to brass tacks. The seller cites a lookalike online asking $900. Corey blinks like, sure, and I'm the tooth fairy. He offers $300, the seller counters, and they settle at $350. Seriously, watch that reaction. Relief, gratitude, and a dash of victory. Mission accomplished. Dad's getting that ticket. Emotional, efficient, done.
It's because, sweet, cheap things just make people happy. So, take something like this, probably cost a penny to make it.
Meanwhile, a seller rolls in with a 1932 Bridgewater's coffin corkscrew, trolling the end of Prohibition with a Volstead-themed gag. Chumley eats up the history and the dark humor. Shot glass, opener, corkscrew, all in a tiny coffin. It's clever and collectible, but condition rules the day, and the ask is a lofty $1,100. Chum's eyebrow says, no chance.
I have a Bridgewater's corkscrew produced in 1932. It comes in a coffin.
The haggling is comedy gold. Chumley counters hard, $150, then $300, keeping that grin while the seller pleads the case. After some friendly jousting, Chum pins the deal at $325. Seriously, look at that reaction. The seller's still up about $200 after 15 years. Win-win. It's not a champagne pop, but it's a satisfying clink.
Where are you at then?
Man, I'm looking at like $150.
Can you get up close to $850?
No, I really couldn't, man.
Then a Nash skateboard from the 1970s rolls in. Corey knows the lineage. Nash made waves across water and sidewalks, but spots the issue fast. Wrong wheels. The seller's dream number evaporates when Corey offers $20. Ouch. No deal. Grandkids get a new toy instead. Expectations versus reality, the sequel.
Good memory. 1970s Nash skateboard.
All right, where in the world did you get this?
Overland Park, Kansas, of all places.
Rick meets a seller carrying a vintage longboard, and not just any plank. The guy claims it's the Beach Boys surfboard from the Surfin' Safari and Surfer Girl covers. Rick's eyes sparkle like ocean spray. The board is huge, sun-soaked history in fiberglass form, and the seller's literally named after Brian Wilson. Icon alert. Can you believe this drama? We're starting at 11.
That is a long board.
Yeah, it is.
It's an old one, too.
Yeah, it is. This is the actual Beach Boys surfboard.
The provenance sounds strong. Dennis Wilson, the band's only real surfer, owned and used it, passed it to a neighbor, Louis Murata, who later gifted it to the seller's dad, then to him. The lineage is neat, clean, and beachy. Rick is hooked, but cautious. Iconic doesn't always equal sale. Still, this thing screams museum piece. You can cut this tension with a fin.
It was owned and used by Dennis Wilson, who was the drummer and the only real surfer in the band. In the 1970s, Dennis gave this board.
Here comes the shocker. The board was insured for $200,000 at the Grammy Museum, and the seller wants $100,000. Bold. Rick doesn't flinch, but he's not gambling six figures blind. He says he'll call in someone who truly knows the rock memorabilia surf. Smart move. Talk about a twist. This price tag is a tidal wave.
How much were you looking to get out of it?
Well, this board was recently the focal point of a year-long exhibit of 50 years with the Beach Boys.
Expert Warwick arrives and instantly recognizes it. Dennis Wilson's board, the story checks out, and it's a famed, documented piece. He notes the big money market for top rock memorabilia, but also flags a key miss: no signatures. Still, he thinks it's a serious item. Can you believe this drama?
I'm quite familiar with the board. It's a very famous, iconic piece. We understand this was Dennis Wilson's board, Dennis the drummer of the Brothers.
Negotiation time. Rick throws out $65,000. Fast cash, real deal. The seller stands at $75,000. The gap is narrow but meaningful. You can cut this tension with a knife. Neither blinks and the seller walks, confident he'll score more elsewhere. Painful pass, but that's the pawn game.
I'm asking $100,000. There's only one like it.
This is my problem with the Beach Boys. They're amazing, everything else, but they're not as iconic.
A new seller arrives with the Atlantic Monthly containing Mark Twain's A True Story. It's in the original wraps, super rare for magazines. Rick's intrigued but cautious. Magazines usually trail books in collector value. Still, Twain is Twain, and the piece predates his later, more serious reputation. Can this printed time capsule cash in? Seriously, look at Rick's curiosity kicking in.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. I guess this is the Atlantic Monthly.
Yes.
The owner shoots for $2,500. Rick likes the piece but calls in expert Rebecca. Magazines can be a minefield. The ask is ambitious, and Rick wants someone who lives in the literary trenches to weigh in before money moves. Expert check time. Expectations are sky high, but reality tends to be ruthless in this shop.
This is in the original wraps, the original covers, nearly impossible to find. Sticking around $2,500.
Rebecca breaks hearts gently but firmly. In the collectibles market, magazines aren't as sexy as books. Even with Twain's name, individual Atlantic issues typically don't soar. She pegs this under $100. Oof! Watching the seller's confidence deflate is rough. Expectations versus reality. Round one goes to reality.
So what is it worth?
Well, there are some magazines that can have some value. The Atlantic is particularly interesting, though, because this was the beginning of his serious reputation.
Rick keeps it respectful, but passes. The seller leaves disappointed, and honestly, who wouldn't be? From $2,500 dreams to sub-$100 market reality is a brutal swing. The shop rolls on, though, and so does the hunt for the next great score. Drama overload. Lesson learned.
So you were asking $2,500, and Rebecca said it's less than 100. So obviously we're not going to do any business.
Next, a Prohibition-era spirit hydrometer. Moonshine science in a tube. The seller jokes about testing last night's hangover level, and Rick riffs on how these devices spared people from bathtub gin disasters. It's nerdy, it's niche, it's oddly charming. Proof versus percentage. Quick history, and bang. Suddenly this little glass rod feels like a relic of survival.
What do we have here?
I have this device that my grandfather used when he made moonshine during Prohibition.
Price time. The seller wants $100. Rick sees limited demand. Today's home distillers buy modern gear. He throws out $20, the seller nudges to $25, and Rick bites. Fast, funny, functional. The seller laughs that he suckered Rick. Honestly, for $25, everyone's walking happy. A tiny win with a big grin.
What are you looking to get out of it, man?
Well, I'd like $100.
Here's the deal with it, man. I don't know if I could really sell it. I'll give you $20 for it if you want it out of your life.
Now a stunner, a Peter Max Statue of Liberty painting. The seller's aiming high, $35,000 to fund a new business. Rick admires the bold colors and pop vibe, but he knows Max has produced a ton of Liberty pieces. Scarcity matters. He calls in an art expert to sort gallery glam from real-world resale. Talk about a plot twist brewing.
Pretty interesting. Peter Max has got a really weird storied life. You know what I mean? This guy was born in like Nazi Germany.
Peter Max expert Brett inspects closely. Not a printed base with simple embellishment. This one's a true original. The lines, the acrylic, the fluent energy. Max's signature feel is all over it. Authenticity confirmed. That sound you hear? The seller's hopes rising again. Seriously, watch that reaction. Priceless.
Peter Max. He's one of those few artists that, you know, when you see him, you know it's a Peter Max. This is a nice work. He was also very much into American jazz.
Then comes the market gut check. Galleries might tag similar works around $50,000, but real-world sales can land closer to $10,000. Brett pegs a fair value near $25,000. Expectations versus reality. Round two. It's not doom, but it's not $35,000 easy money either. The chess match begins.
You might see this same work for $50,000, but they're so prevalent you might find the same work selling for $10,000 on the internet.
Rick pounces, opens at $10,000, nudges to $12,000 cash. The seller pushes back, tries for $15,000, but the room's gravity pulls him down. After a tense beat, he takes $12,000. Talk about a twist. Half expert value, but the seller gets instant funding, and Rick gets a wall-worthy icon. Deal done.
I mean, what would be the best price you'd take?
I'm pretty firm on my $35,000 price.
I mean, it's tough.
First up, a seller walks in confidently holding a model 1860 Civil War officer's sword. He He drops the bombshell that it belonged to Colonel Bassett, who supposedly fought in 22 battles and came out a general. He claims the sword broke in combat but survived history. Then comes the punchline. He's asking $20,000. Rick looks like he just swallowed a lemon. You can cut this tension with a bayonet.
A cavalry sword.
Civil War officer's sword. Belonged to Colonel Bassett.
Rick examines the sword closely and immediately spots the problem. Those battle scars? He insists they're not authentic, but dents from kids play fighting years later. He reminds the seller that the Civil War wasn't about sword duels. It was mostly rifles and bayonets. The seller fights back, swearing this blade saw battle. The back and forth is intense, with Rick skeptical and the seller doubling down on his war story.
My problem is I've never heard of this colonel that was breveted to a general. I've never heard of him.
Nope. But they should have made a movie about this guy.
Okay.
The seller's confidence grows as he emphasizes Colonel Bassett's decorated history, even insisting the sword was there at the surrender. Rick admits he hasn't heard of Bassett, but doesn't dismiss the possibility. Still, the elephant in the room is the condition. It's cracked, dinged, and fragile. Rick decides this needs an expert's opinion. He promises to bring someone in, while the seller smiles nervously, clearly hoping history is on his side.
We had millions of people fighting in the Civil War, so I can't know about all of them.
And now, it's time for the Civil War sword's big reveal. Rick's expert confirms it's authentic, a genuine presentation piece tied to Bassett. The history checks out, but the condition is brutal. The break alone devastates the value. If it were pristine, Rick says he'd pay $10,000, but in its battered state, just $2,500. The seller refuses, still convinced his sword is priceless. No deal, just a dramatic clash of history versus reality.
Okay, this is the Colonel Bassett that you called me
yes,
about?
that is the guy, Colonel Bassett. I've never heard of him.
Next, the shop gets a blast from the 1890s, a Humphreys veterinary medicine box. It's a portable kit full of miracle cures for farm animals, everything from worms to sexual weakness in livestock. Rick flips through the bottles, chuckling at the bizarre labels. You can see his mix of fascination and disbelief. Can you believe people actually trusted this stuff? The seller is hopeful, but Rick's skeptical grin tells you this won't fetch a fortune.
Whoa, that's different. Humphreys, veterinary
specific
for the cure of horses, cattle, sheep, hogs, dogs, and poultry.
The seller shoots for $650. Rick immediately lowballs at $400, pointing out that rarity doesn't equal value. The seller pushes back, angling for $575, but Rick holds his ground. After some back and forth, Rick bumps to $450, making it clear it's his final offer. The seller takes it, still satisfied. Watching Rick buy a box of antique horse medicine with a straight face is pure comedy gold.
Rug Act, kits like this were pretty common for humans, and the same thing applied for animals.
Then comes a small but powerful piece of history, a 1936 Berlin Olympic pin. The seller explains he won it during a poker game against a drunk German nicknamed Goose. It's equal parts sketchy and hilarious, exactly the kind of Vegas story you'd expect. Rick dives into the history, explaining how Hitler used the 36 Olympics for propaganda, while the seller just wants to finally cash in Goose's unpaid tab.
What do we have there?
We've got a 1936 Olympic pin from Berlin, Germany.
Where in the world did you find this?
The seller wants $300, but Rick calls it a common souvenir. He offers $75. The seller pushes for $200, and Rick settles at $100. After 3 years of chasing his poker winnings, the seller finally gets his money. Just not the jackpot he dreamed of. His resigned laugh says it all. Honestly, who knew a Nazi pin could have such a hilarious origin story?
I want to sell this pin today because it's finally time to collect the $100 that old Goose owes me.
Now the episode shifts into sci-fi territory with two incredible 1960s tin toy robots. One's Colonel Haphazard, complete with its original box, and the other's a rare Roscoe astronaut. They're shiny, functional, and scream retro space race. The seller ambitiously asks $5,000 for the pair. Rick's intrigued but knows he needs backup, so he calls in toy expert Johnny. The seller beams with confidence. Big mistake!
What can I help you with today?
I got a couple of robots here I'd like to sell.
All right, what do you have here?
Let's see, I got a Colonel Haphazard.
Johnny arrives and instantly geeks out. He inspects every detail, the paint, the functions, the authenticity, and even powers them on. Watching the robots light up is pure nostalgia. He explains that Colonel Haphazard could fetch around $1,500, while the rarer Roscoe Astronaut might bring $1,800. Together, he values the pair at about $3,200. Great news, but still far off the seller's $5,000 fantasy.
Minor little blemishes on this one here, but overall, condition's great. Colonel Haphazard. What's amazing here is that everything's complete. He's nice and white.
Negotiation time. Rick offers $1,900. The seller stands tall at $4,000. Rick climbs to $2,200, but the seller still won't budge. After a tense standoff, the seller walks away. Drama overload. Rick shrugs, knowing collectors would have paid up to his offer, but not more. Sometimes pride trumps profit, and this seller chose pride.
So you heard what Johnny had to say?
I need $4,000 for the pair.
It's not gonna happen. I mean, I see the value in them, but I can't pay that much for them.
Next, a woman brings in a Victorian-era milk glass oil lamp by Royal Za. She dreams of selling it for $1,300 to fund a vacation with her daughter. Rick admires its look and dives into kerosene history, noting how it revolutionized lighting in the 1860s. For a moment, hope glimmers, but then Rick spots sloppy repairs and mismatched parts. Her face drops instantly.
It's a milk glass oil lamp made by the Dutch company Royal Zanzara.
Okay.
Rick gently explains the soldering is awful, the fit isn't original, and the lamp's authenticity is compromised. Translation: no deal. The seller thanks him but looks crushed. You can feel her disappointment. Her dream vacation just evaporated with a single expert glance. Seriously, you can cut the tension with a knife here.
Prior to the invention of kerosene, most lamps either burned vegetable oils or animal fats.
A man walks in with an 1861 Sharps and Hankins experimental rifle. Right away, Rick lights up. This isn't your everyday pawnshop find. The seller explains that only around 700 to 750 were made across 5 different models. Talk about rare. But the Civil War era was full of prototypes, and Rick knows that could mean big value or big disappointment.
Hey, so what do we got here?
It's an 1861 Sharps and Hankins experimental rifle.
That's pretty cool.
Rick takes a closer look at the rifle. He loves that it still has the Sharps name stamped on it. Yep, where sharpshooter comes from. But something seems off. The stock looks sanded down, maybe even altered. That's bad news for value. The seller's confidence is sky high, asking $3,000, but Rick isn't biting yet. He decides it's time to call in an expert.
Weird experimental guns were coming out. Sharps rifles are known for their quality, and even the guns that didn't sell well are still considered collectible.
Sean, the firearms expert, shows up to evaluate. He explains that Sharps rifles were revolutionary during the Civil War, letting soldiers fire multiple shots a minute while others struggled to get one off. But here's the catch. The barrel length is odd, 23 3/4 inches. That screams modification. And suddenly the seller's hopes for a huge payday are in serious danger.
I love seeing things like this because at the beginning of the Civil War, you had at least a half a dozen firing technologies fighting against each other.
The expert drops the bomb. This gun is probably worth $1,500 to $2,000 max. The seller looks crushed. Rick tries to sweeten the blow with an offer, $1,000. That's a huge step down from the $3,000 the seller wanted. Negotiations get tense, with the seller refusing to go below $1,500. Rick barely budges to $1,050. The seller shakes his head, packs up, and walks out. No deal.
$1,500 to $2,000 gun.
So, but it's most likely modified. It's a modified rifle.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Next up, a customer rolls in with an absolutely stunning chess table from the 1840s. Over 500 tiny pieces of inlaid wood make up this masterpiece. The seller wants a whopping $5,000. Rick's impressed, but also skeptical. Rare doesn't always mean valuable. And let's be honest, $5,000 for a table is no casual pawnshop purchase.
We got here?
This is an amazing chess table. It's from the 1840s. There's over 500 pieces of inlaid wood.
Rick dives into the details. The table features a bizarre carving that looks like a Fiji mermaid, a famous P.T. Barnum hoax where a monkey's body was sewn to a fishtail. Creepy, yet fascinating. The seller insists it's unique and worth the big money, but Rick wants expert confirmation before putting thousands on the table.
The oldest board game we still play. Everybody played it. It was a really common thing to have it on furniture.
Right.
The beard of knowledge expert arrives, donuts in hand, and even brings along an actual Fiji mermaid prop. It's nightmare fuel, but hilarious. Examining the chess table, he explains that the mass-produced base was probably customized with a one-of-a-kind design, maybe even as a gag gift. Translation, it's cool, but anonymous. No maker to drive up the value.
No, you called me about a Fiji mermaid, so I thought I'd bring one over with me.
A Fiji mermaid?
Yes. Don't know whether you've ever seen the real thing.
Rick throws out his offer, $500. The seller laughs nervously, countering at half of his $5,000 dream price. But the gap is way too wide. Neither side budges. And just like that, another no deal. The seller leaves with his table, still convinced it'll someday fetch the big bucks.
I love this table, and for a certain price, I would do it, but I can't do it for $500. I go half.
Now comes the real showstopper, a book printed in 1589 during Queen Elizabeth I's reign. The seller proudly explains it's one of the first English military field manuals, complete with early fortification diagrams. He's asking $14,000. Rick's floored. This is definitely museum quality, but $14,000 is steep. Time to call in Rebecca, the book expert.
And it's also got a second book inside, which is the first book of fortification.
Rebecca arrives and lights up immediately. She confirms the book's authenticity, even pointing out a mind-blowing detail. Playwright Christopher Marlowe actually borrowed passages from this very manual for his play Tamburlaine. That connection is priceless, literally. But she tempers expectations, valuing the book at $12,000. Still rare, still incredible, but not quite the seller's dream number.
This is a contemporary vellum binding. This is very exciting. One of the great sort of rivals of Shakespeare was Kit Marlowe.
Negotiations kick off. Rick starts at $8,000 and the seller winces. He pushes for $9,000, but Rick won't go higher than $8,600. After a dramatic pause, the seller sighs and agrees. The book changes hands for $8,600, by far the biggest deal of the episode.
I'll give you $8,000 for it.
I just think it has a lot of appeal. It's an exciting book.
It is an exciting book.
What's the absolute best? Will you come up with
I'll go $8,500.
A customer presents an old percussion pistol, gifted by a friend moving to Japan. Rick's intrigued, until he checks the ramrod and realizes it's actually loaded. The seller wants $1,100, hoping to walk with at least $800. Rick's face says it all. Cool artifact, potential hazard. Tension spikes as everyone leans back a little. Drama overload is an understatement when the gun on the counter might still bark.
What do we have?
Well, it's an old percussion pistol.
That's neat.
This was just given to me by a friend of mine. He retired to Japan and not allowed to take firearms into Japan.
Yeah, that's true.
Rick spots W. Childs on the side plate and pegs it early 1800s cap and ball smoothbore. Classic dueling pistol territory. Then the twist. This one even has a safety, which Rick calls really, really rare. He riffs about Hamilton and Burr while noting collectors prefer pairs, not single orphans. You can cut this tension with a knife. Great history, but value gets dinged without its twin.
Well, on the side plate, it's Mark W. Childs. He was a firearms maker in probably later 1800s.
It's not late 1800s. It's early 1800s because it's cap and ball. Late 1800s, cap and ball was gone.
Negotiations snap like a flintlock. Seller floats $1,100. Rick fires back with $500. The seller balks. Rick edges up to $800. The old man chimes in with that split it swagger, and they land at $850. Watching the seller's reluctant grin and Rick's quiet smirk is priceless. Expectations versus reality in real time. It's not a home run, but it's money. Deal done.
Well, I'm looking for $1,100.
You got the other gun with it?
No.
If you had the pair, I would pay you $2,200 in a minute. I guarantee you, collectors want them in pairs. I'm thinking $500.
That's way too low. Lowest I could go is like $900.
Then, Southern Rock lore. A man claims he owns Ronnie Van Zant's hat, handed to him backstage in 1977. He paints the scene, then the heartbreak. The plane crash 2 months later. The sticker shock? He wants $25,000. Rick's listening hard. Corey is already skeptical. You can feel the family friction brewing before anyone even touches the brim. Can you believe this setup?
How can I help you?
I wanted to sell something.
Well, what do you got?
This amazing hat belonged to Ronnie Van Zant.
Ronnie Van Zant.
Leonard Skinner, Freebird. He gave it to me in 1977.
Rick admires the quality. 100% beaver, custom made. And the seller shows a photo of Ronnie wearing a similar hat. Cool, but Corey's laser focused on proof. No rock-solid provenance, no rock-solid price. It's the classic pawn shop tug of war, legend versus documentation. Rick's eyes say iconic, Corey's say slow down. The air's getting thick, and not just with Freebird nostalgia.
As the original lead singer of Leonard Skinner, Ronnie Van Zant was basically a rock god. In 1977, Ronnie Van Zant and 2 other band members were killed in a plane crash.
Here comes the clash. The seller's stuck on $25,000. Rick goes bold at $10,000. Corey flatly calls it crazy and bows out. I don't want any part of this. The seller won't dip under $20,000. Rick won't climb a dollar over $10,000. That stalemate thuds like a bad encore. No deal. It's painful, but you gotta respect the lines in the sand.
I'll give you 10 grand for the hat.
Dad, you're crazy. He has no real proof that this is.
I see enough proof here.
I think you're crazy for offering him 10 grand, honestly. I'm gonna bow out here. I don't want any part of this.
A new chapter, literally. A first edition of Charles Dickens's David Copperfield hits the counter. The seller wants 4 grand. Rick spots foxing and condition issues, but the title is heavy hitting. Offers volley, $1,000 from Rick, $3,000 from the seller. The old man heckling, pay him, $1,200. After a tense back and forth, Rick decides to call in his book expert.
Book collectors love this kind of stuff, and they'll pay big money for it. Problem is, I'm not 100% on what I should be paying this. And my book expert is not around today, but my gut is telling me to buy it.
Rebecca, Rick's book expert, arrives. She checks for first issue tells and nails one. On page 16, cannot recall with a single L. Exactly the misprint you want for earliest issue. Then the gut punch, foxing throughout, especially on the engraved title page. Authentic and early, but condition hurts. Still, this could land nicely.
Well, we're going to check that. With some books, you know the first edition is the most collectible, but with some editions, there are issues within the edition, and you always want very earliest. You want edition number 1, issue number 1.
Rebecca calls retail at $2,500 to $3,000. Rick paid $1,600. He's safe, maybe even smiling inside. Quick banter. How much you pay? $1,600. You're set then. The old man swoops in with comic timing. Give me my book back. It's the rare moment where risk meets reward and the shop actually breathes easier. Expectations versus reality, this time in Rick's favor.
How much you pay for it?
$1,600.
Ah, you're set then.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to start calling you up when I actually buy these things.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Hey, Rick, what bull? Give me my book back.
All right, here you go.
Nostalgia time. A vintage payphone. Rotary dial, built like a mini safe and heavy enough to dent a sidewalk. The seller says it's been converted for home use. Corey notes how these once lived on every corner and are now practically extinct. The charm factor is high, and honestly, the thing just looks cool on a wall. Seriously, listen for the dings. Pure time machine.
What we have here is old-fashioned cell phone.
What do you think it's from?
If the phone could talk, we might know, but unfortunately it just listens.
Corey tests the coin sounds. Ding, 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 bong, and gets down to business. The seller asks $250. Corey counters at $100. After some light sparring, they settle at $140. It's not high drama, but it's the kind of win that keeps collectors happy and shelves interesting. Watching the seller avoid lugging that beast back to the car, priceless relief.
You ever hear the term drop a dime?
Yeah.
It's all payphones used to take. It's cool that somebody already went through the trouble to convert this phone so it can be used at home. Saves me a lot of trouble. People will definitely buy these things, but they want to use them, not just keep them like a collector would.